Actually, this is going to be riveting, so.
Oh, is that on? Beside the drum?
This is Kay.
Oh, what did you say? Oh, yeah, maybe, because you're first. Oh, Santa? Yeah. Oh. Well, that's disturbing. Yeah.
Hi, Paula.
Hi, Brad. How are you?
Good to see you.
It's time, isn't it? Yeah.
So,
Thank you for relocating. Is this where the mic needs to be? Can you hear me? Beg your pardon? Now, can you hear me better? Can you hear me now? I see. I see how that's going to go. Welcome to the SAM 2024 conference. We acknowledge that this conference takes place on the Wawi-Adanong lands, also referred to as Detroit, the ancestral and contemporary homeland of the Three Fires Confederacy. These sovereign lands were granted by the Ojibwe, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Wyandot nations in 1807 through the Treaty of Detroit. We affirm indigenous sovereignty and honor all tribes with a connection to Detroit. This session is being live streamed and recorded. Be aware that people asking questions may be visible during the live stream. We ask that you please refrain from videos, photos, or personal live streaming of materials presented during this session. And if you have a question, we will ask that you ask the question at the end over a microphone that you'll have to come up to get your hands on. We would also like to remind you of SAM's Code of Ethics, which commits us to, quote, respect the diversity of opinions as expressed by its membership, quote, and to maintain a professional level of courtesy, respect, and objectivity in all society activities. I know what's about to happen, and it's going to be exciting, so I'm ready to get right underway by introducing our first presenter. Stephanie Jensen-MOULTon is the Interim Dean of the School of Visual, Media, and Performing Arts and Professor of Musicology and American Studies at Brooklyn College, CUNY. From 2019 to 2023, she was director of the Hitchcock Institute for Studies in American Music. Her edition of Miriam Gideon's lost 1958 opera, Fortunato, was published with AR Editions in 2013. She is also co-editor of the Oxford Handbook of Music and Disability 2015. Jensen-MOULTon's work appears in journals including American Music, Music Theory Online, the Journal of the American Musicological Society, and Women in Music. Her monograph, American Opera and the Disabling of Women, is forthcoming with Amherst College Press, and her co-edited collection with Lauren CARR, Better Be Good to Me, American Popular Songs as Domestic Violence Narratives, with University of Michigan's Music and Social Justice series. Here's Stephanie.
Okay, we're just going to do a little bit of tech work to make sure that you can hear the important sound elements of this. So I need to get here to a speaker very quickly, not a human speaker, but an electronic speaker. So I'm just going to take a moment to do this, and from what I understand, there will be a potentially disruptive beeping sound. I don't see the icon yet. Okay. searching. Put up your antennae. Yep. Everyone else, if you hear a beeping sound, that's okay. Aha, is this it? Oh, the beeping sound has changed.
Whoa.
It's a cadence, people. I think we're good.
Stephanie, you still need to plug it.
Plug in your video.
Okay, I still need to plug in my video. Okay, I should have done that instead of getting so excited, but you know, this is the neurodiverse among us. Okay. Can you all see everything? Okay, and you'll soon understand why I am not in my PowerPoint but in my calendar. Okay, that's off the first slide, and here we go. Okay, so this very small and this will soon be much shorter than it would seem. This paper or portion of this panel is called Sustaining and Transforming the Institute for Studies in American Music into its 5th decade and beyond. And actually there is a co-presenter here who will soon join us on Zoom for the Q&A. And she is the current director of the Institute for Studies in American Music, which is now the Hitchcock Institute for Studies in American Music. I just stepped down from being the director because, as happens in large urban universities, things happen fast, and in the middle of the summer, I was called upon to be an interim dean. You can collectively groan and sigh because that's what I've been doing all year. And so I was no longer director of the Hitchcock Institute, which I have been doing for 4 years. So here are some fast facts about CUNY and HiSam. And I'm going to make these a little bigger by making this a slideshow so that you can all see a little bit better. CUNY is a city university of New York, and it's a 26 community, professional, and senior colleges in a massive conglomerate system employing as many people as a large city, say Boston. And the Institute for Studies in American Music is founded at Brooklyn College. It was founded in 1971 by H. Wiley Hitchcock, who was a major figure in American music. He was one of the founding members here at the Sonic Society, and a mentor to many who were members of the founding Sonic Society crew. And he had a number of dissertation advisees all over the place at University of Michigan and at the Graduate Center in its original incarnation. And the Graduate Center is the doctorate granting institution of CUNY. So it's like one college, but like they're all doctoral students. It's a wild place. So his acts to bring American music to the fore, one of them was to bring the Institute for Studies in American Music into fruition. And he did so by having a great relationship with the provost at Brooklyn College at the time, who gave him 100% course release to do this and to hire people, but he also had to write a lot of grants. In 2009, in honor of its founder, ISAM became HiSam. So you'll hear in the interview that I do with Augustina, our current director, you'll hear her refer to HiSam. That's the Hitchcock Institute, which it became in 2009. And in 2020, HiSam became an affiliate partner of the Barry S. Brooks Center for Musical Documentation, which is housed at the Graduate Center. So we've got CUNY, which is the massive, monolith style, giant urban public funded the same way as the New York City subway. Yes, it's true. And then you've got Brooklyn College, which is one piece of this, the doctorate granting institution, the Graduate Center, which is another piece. And then you've got this little piece, the Institute for Studies in American Music, which becomes HiSam. And of late, we have this amazing new director, and for the first time we have someone outside Brooklyn College directing HiSam, and she's done wonderful things like this, changing our logo and our font, and turning our periodical, the American Music Review, into something that's not only beautiful to read, but beautiful to look at. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Augustina Cheka, who is a pioneer in many ways. She's done research on cassette tape culture in Argentina, and many other topics. So she is an assistant professor at Lehman College, and she'll be joining us for the Q&A via Zoom, I hope, if my hotspot holds out. And here is an interview that I did with her earlier this month. Just little pieces of it. And I promise I'll stay under 10 minutes. So let's hope the sound holds out.
Questions, and I'm going to start with this one. What were your thoughts when I first asked you if you would be the next director of the Hitchcock Institute?
Feels like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't actually that long. So at first, I want to say I was honored and flattered that you reached out because you know, I was at the time I'm still a junior scholar, but at that time I was only a year into being an assistant professor at CUNY, and you know, I feel like I fought a lot to get over my imposter syndrome as a student, and then it came back as soon as I started being a professor. So it was just like, in that sense, I feel like kind of a validation in the sense of using the promise in what I could bring into the institute, right? And not only that, like just going back to your email, I remember you saying that my scholarship and my work was really going into what you were hoping that to bring to HiSam, that is this kind of broader understanding of what American music is, and this kind of like anti-racist approaches to scholarship. So in that sense, I feel like you really sold it to me, right? And then I think the main thing that ended up inspiring me to say yes was also what you told me about, let's say, the power that you have to use this institute to not only generate these kind of platforms and spaces for the kinds of changes that you want to see in like American music performances of scholarship, but also in terms of the connections that being the head of the institute would allow me to, like having those resources in order to make connections with scholars in my field, with people that have aligned interests, or even with the board of HiSam itself that has such prominent scholars and performers. So in that sense, I feel like you really sold it to me.
Yeah, well, that was my intention, obviously. But really, like, you were the first person I thought of because, you know, I had heard about your dissertation on cassette tape culture in South America, and the work that you've done had been received really well and broadly. And I thought, you know, I'd really like to see HiSam reaching out to a more, you know, broadly understood audience for American music, and also just like expressing that American music isn't just about the contiguous 48 states, and that it's more about like music of the Americas. So I was really excited when you said that you were interested, and then I was really excited when you said yes. So obviously, like, succession was an issue for us at HiSam because we'd had some retirements and faculty was really thin on the ground. So one of the things that we had done was create an association with the Graduate Center, so that with the Brooke Institute at the Graduate Center, so that we had a broader array of faculty to draw from. So you're really the first person who is a faculty person not from Brooklyn College, because we've been based at Brooklyn College for more than 50 years. So you're revolutionary in many ways. So after you started at the Hitchcock Institute as director, like what was the reality? I know you had like the dream, but what was the reality of starting out at the Hitchcock Institute? And you can be very blunt, that's okay.
I would say, a lot of what you said did come true, right? I was somehow, now having Padilla Leon's number on my phone. Like, how did that happen, yeah, so a lot of it did come true, and the possibilities of the resources that I had to create, performances and maybe bring scholars to do presentations and stuff. That was all there. Sometimes it's not as easy bureaucratically to get people paid, get people paid in time. So that was something that I'm like, that me being in CUNY, I know CUNY to be CUNY and that those things happen. But when it's you on the line as the director and have to be telling people like, hey, sorry, your check is coming months and months delayed, does get a little frustrated, because it's easy to underestimate how much you're dependent on other people in other departments and business offices and people that may or may not follow through with your emails. But other than that, I feel like I did come to this with kind of realistic expectations, right? Knowing like what are things that I could do, especially with the fact that I wasn't given reassigned time. And so with knowing that the expectations for me not being able to use this full time, 100% give it my full attention and my time, I was able to accommodate that to what I could deliver, right? In terms of how many performances, how many keynote speeches, how many issues of AMR. So yeah, in that sense, I do feel like I was able to work with the stuff that it was actually there,
Yeah, and I think what I wanted to bring across to...
So I'm going to stop there, even though it's a 20-minute interview. And I just want to emphasize that Augustina has done just incredible things with the small amount of resources. She's organized, I think, 6 events so far, and they've been incredibly successful. But she's being paid from, a very small stipend. And the reality is that we don't have any faculty left in the Institute because of retirements and non-replacements. So it's really important to us philosophically to keep the Institute open, but I think we have to have this association with the Graduate Center in order to keep the Institute running. We have one grad B who's in the back there, Michelle Young. Thank you, Michelle. And we're going to be able to maintain that thanks to our association with the Graduate Center. But it is sort of a question of maneuverability and being nimble and being creative in the face of basically working with what the government is willing to give us. And we're also, constantly thinking about what grants are we eligible to write. We do write grants all the time, but we also don't have time to write grants. So, we don't have reassigned time. And that's tricky. So we really want to keep this open because it's historically important, but it is a constant challenge. And I would say that what Augustina has done has been absolutely amazing. And it is, to be frank, really challenging, but it's something important to all of us, and we're working hard to keep it open. So thanks very much. I'm going to get Augustina on Zoom so that she can observe the rest of the session and maybe join us for the Q&A. Thanks very much.
So put a pin in that, as one of my friends says, as you think about diminishing resources, waning institutional support. These are things I want to hear these folks talk about later in the session. Our next presenter is Greg REISH. Greg REISH is Professor of Music History at Middle Tennessee State University and Director of the Center for Popular Music since 2014. He is active as an integrative scholar, performer, producer of old-time country, bluegrass, Tejano, and regional Mexican musics, and in 2023 served as Fulbright Garcia Robles U.S. Studies Chair at the University of Veracruz in Mexico. Here's Greg.
Thank you, Kate. One moment here. That's Mexico, in case you couldn't tell. Well, let's just do it this way. That's good. Thank you all, and thanks to Kay, our moderator, and the rest of the panelists for bringing this all together. I've titled my talk somewhat ambitiously, The Archive and the Discipline, American Music Studies and the Center for Popular Music, which is a lot to cover in 10 minutes. But really what I'm going to be talking about is a kind of a case study in some senses. Research centers play critical roles in how the collective agendas of scholarly disciplines advance, both responding to and influencing the priorities of scholars, students, and others. It is tempting to think of the archive as a passive repository where important source materials lie waiting for researchers to come and make something of them. But archiving is not passive, and it involves much more than acts of preservation. Those of us who work in archives are charged with making consequential decisions about what to collect, how to process and organize the materials, and how to make collections accessible. Undeniably, we are gatekeepers by definition, and we have a responsibility to work with the scholars, teachers, documentarians, museum curators, and others whose task is to shape source materials into meaningful narratives and present them to various constituent audiences. We also have a responsibility to engage directly with the communities whose music we seek to collect, preserve, and present. To that end, many research centers also undertake their own outreach efforts through instruction, exhibits, event programming, and various other means. At the Center for Popular Music, we maintain a robust calendar of public programs, pursue projects that increase awareness of and accessibility to our collections, and seek constructive partnerships with local communities to involve them directly in our collection development. The CPM also operates an in-house record label, Spring-Fed Records, which serves as both an additional outlet for presenting musical material to the public and a training ground for students in our university's music business and audio engineering programs. At the time of its founding in 1985, the Center for Popular Music at Middle Tennessee State was understood to be a research center for vernacular music of the United States, with an emphasis on the mostly Anglo-American and African-American genres that the young discipline of American Music Studies understood to be in its purview. The CPM archive includes more than 1 million individual items related to the history of American folk and popular music. Many of these items are rare or unique. The archive includes music books from the 18th century to the present, sheet music, photographs, concert programs and advertisements, catalogs, manuscript items such as business papers and correspondence, and of course, audio and video recordings in every format, starting with Edison-style cylinders. The center's staff includes archivists, librarians, a musicologist, that's me, and an audio preservation specialist. When I arrived at the center in 2014 as its new director, I came to a well-established institution with one of the largest American music research collections anywhere. The center's mission and scope are quite broad, and the phrasing of our current mission statement deliberately evokes a sense of comprehensiveness. I don't know if you can all read that. I'll read it for you. The center's mission is to promote research in American vernacular music and to foster an understanding and appreciation of America's diverse musical culture. And then there's some bullet points more specific to the ways we do that. The original meaning of the word American in this statement, I am quite sure, was music of the United States. But one thing I realized when I began to assess the archive's existing strengths and areas for possible improvement was that in its long history, there had been a neglect of music from Spanish-speaking communities. Hispanic music, even inside the political boundaries of the United States, had been treated as something foreign, something not necessarily American, a phenomenon that can also be traced through the history of the US entertainment industry and, of course, in the relatively young discipline of American music studies. This seemed to me a serious problem, considering both the history of our part of the globe and the major demographic shifts that have been taking place in the southeastern US region where the CPM is located. There's a growing richness to the musical life of our region, which for generations has been defined primarily by the Anglo-American and African-American cultural traditions. If you're paying attention to the full range of musical sounds today in Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, or North Carolina, it is increasingly likely that you will hear an accordion or bajo sexto, a mariachi or banda, a ranchera song, huapango, or cumbia. I found it very interesting, however, that many of my students, and even my musical colleagues at the University School of Music, were almost completely unaware of this changing musical landscape. I regularly show my classes pictures and video of concerts and other events like this one from a show by Los Tigres del Norte in Nashville, Tennessee, and I ask students to guess where this is taking place. They are almost always shocked to learn that this music is happening in their own cities and neighborhoods. It is almost as if there's a parallel musical universe that exists right next to the one that Anglo-Americans and African-Americans already know. The fundamental issue is that most white and black students in Tennessee and elsewhere in the United States consider these performers, audiences, and music foreign in every sense of the word, rather than truly American. There have, of course, been some positive developments to reverse the history of exclusion of Mexican and other Latino musics within the broader spectrum of American music studies. Praiseworthy efforts to revisit and expand the meaning of this very phrase. In 2012, after a long and sometimes contentious debate among our members, the Society for American Music revised its mission statement to embrace, quote, the study, teaching, creation, and dissemination of musics in the Americas, plural, end quote. As chair of the program committee for the Society's annual meeting in 2019, I was proud to see an increase of approximately 30% in the number of presentations devoted to Latin America, a sign perhaps that the new mission statement was working. By contrast, however, SAM's published list of library, archives, and research centers for American music on the Society's website still includes only institutions located in the United States. Scholarly activity and publishing have also increased in their attention to Hispanic cultures as a legitimate part of American music studies, particularly by a new generation of US-based scholars who focus on music making in the United States. Recent scholarship by Alex Chavez on Huapango Aribeño, Sofia Enriquez on Latino music making in Appalachia, and Marta Gonzalez on Chicano Artivistas in Los Angeles have all approached such traditions as diasporic, with an emphasis on issues of migration and transnational identity. Certainly these are relevant and extremely important perspectives, and these scholars are doing powerful work. But I would like to offer another, perhaps more radical viewpoint to consider, that Mexican American and other Hispanic musical cultures inside the United States should not always be treated as diasporic, given both the entangled history and the changing borders of the Americas. Furthermore, we must bear in mind that generations of Chicano musicians have been born and raised in the United States, and that styles and practices have changed in these US contexts, all of which is to say that musical communities in the United States might legitimately be considered regions of Mexican and other Latino musics. Likewise, it is time for all of us involved in the scholarship of American music to move beyond constructed national boundaries in our thinking about the study, teaching, and archiving of American music. So how can we, as managers of archives and research centers, seek to address issues as enormous as this? Collection development of archival material takes considerable time to build relationships, establish trust, find appropriate grant opportunities, and develop major new initiatives. In the case of music outside of the US, legal and ethical issues of patriation come to the fore as well. My strategy at the Center for Popular Music was to focus first on programming and outreach efforts to demonstrate our institutional commitment to fully embracing Hispanic music within our American music mission, and as a way to start building the network of relationships that would one day lead to significant collection acquisitions. The CBM has engaged in a broad project to promote Mexican and Mexican-American music as American traditions, alongside blues, country, gospel, bluegrass, jazz, and all the rest that the CBM has been promoting and collecting for decades. We have presented several Tejano artists from San Antonio to our campus community and to the general public in our region, as well as Norteño artists from Monterrey, Mexico, and a variety of musical groups from the state of Veracruz, where I've been engaged in my own field work since 2017. We've also showcased Tejano music through our label, Spring-Fed Records. We acquired Spring-Fed just after my arrival at the center in 2014, considering it a good way to preserve and promote traditional music of the U.S. South through a less academic and more public-facing channel. The label's catalog is rich with Anglo-American and African-American folk music, and we continue to release albums representing these traditions that are so strongly associated with Tennessee and the surrounding region. We have also released 4 albums so far of traditional Tejano music and have projects underway representing 2 distinct Veracruzan musical traditions. By the way, a couple of these are in the silent auction, so you can get yourself one for a bargain price. I believe we are at a crucial moment that requires a fundamental rethinking of our collective approach to ongoing challenges. Our strategy at the CPM of embracing Hispanic music through our programming and outreach efforts is but one example of how research centers can actively work to help reshape and improve our understanding of American music. There are countless examples of other communities, immigrant and native, new and long-standing, inside and outside of the U.S., whose music awaits full acceptance by our community of researchers. Our role as gatekeepers requires us both to see what scholars and teachers across our disciplines are doing and to help guide the next generations of American music specialists to develop a broader and more ecumenical understanding of what our field truly encompasses. Thank you.
James REVELL CARR is Associate Professor of Ethnomusicology and Director of the John Jacob Niles Center for American Music at the University of Kentucky. His areas of research include maritime war songs, Anglo-American balladry, and intercultural appropriation. REVELL has also worked as an interpretive park ranger at San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park, where he ran the park's sea shanty programs, Where Was I when that was going on, and as an educator at maritime museums in Connecticut, Oregon, and California. REVELL's first book, Hawaiian Music in Motion, Mariners, Missionaries, and Minstrels from University of Illinois Press in 2014, received the Society of Ethnomusicology's Alan P. Merriam Prize for Outstanding Book in Ethnomusicology for 2015.
Why anyone know what's happening here?
Looks like you're not mirroring. Actually, if you just start the PowerPoint, like,
Okay.
work automatically. Start the slideshow.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and thank you to Kay for moderating, and thank you to Megan for putting this panel together. So I've just got a little slideshow about our humble little center at the University of Kentucky. And I'll try my best to work through this fairly quickly so we can get on to more of a discussion. Let's see here. All right. John Jacob Niles, who our center is named for, was a Kentucky-born folk song collector, a singer, composer, and scholar who began collecting Appalachian ballads as early as 1910 when he was working as a traveling adding machine salesman for the Burroughs Company. He would go around Appalachia selling adding machines. We actually have one in our archive. he made a name for himself as both a concert singer and a publisher of ballad collections. But he was a little bit treated with a little bit of suspicion by the folklore establishment because he had a tendency to, quote unquote, muddy the waters. He would take fragments of existing songs and turn them into larger songs. He would take already existing texts and then write new melodies for them, and he was never particularly good at kind of explaining where his additions pick up and the traditional song left off. You know, he's known for some wonderful compositions like I Wonder As I Wander, Go Away From My Window, and Black Is the Color of My True Love's Hair. Best version of that is by Nina Simone, in case you're wondering. And he, in doing this kind of folk song writing, he kind of paved the way for people like Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan to go on and write songs in folk idioms. He's sort of seen as one of the sort of godfathers of the modern folk song movement. He passed away in 1980, and after his death, his papers and archives came to the University of Kentucky in 1983. So this collection, this initial collection of the Niles family includes his notebooks from his fieldwork, his manuscripts, recordings, lots and lots of photos, papers, and then most precious, I think, are his wonderful musical instruments that he built and collected, and other wood carvings that he did, and other artwork. In 2001, Dr. Ron Penn, who wrote the definitive biography of John Jacob Niles, opened the doors to the John Jacob Niles Center for American Music, located in University of Kentucky's Lucille Caudill Little Fine Arts Library. There we are, right in the lobby of the Fine Arts Library. In our mission statement, which has not changed since 2001, the center seeks to provide a comprehensive focus for the research and performance of American music, embracing both vernacular and cultivated aspects of the field, from the early colonial period through the present, with special emphasis on the culture of the southeastern United States. Excuse me. The heart of this center is the Niles Gallery, our performance space, which we use to host many, many student and faculty recitals, lectures by guest speakers and speakers from within UK, faculty performances, dance workshops, sing-alongs, and many, many concerts by local, regional, national, and international touring artists. The center's facilities also include a small study room for scholars who use the Niles collection, and I'll talk about that in a moment. It's also frequently used for meetings and oral defenses and things like that. And it is, as you can see, a bit of a shrine to John Jacob Niles. So we never forget who it's named after. His face is really everywhere at the center. Along with the Niles collection, the center's archives also include several important archives. The Wilcox collection, which holds over 6,000 albums of popular and classical song, and over 5,000 early American hymnals, some dating back to the early 18th century. We also have the Faber collection, which includes over 2,000 country music recordings from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and the John Lair collection, which includes papers on the early years of the WLS barn dance and the Renfro Valley barn dance in Kentucky. So one of the things I want to make sure we talk about in this panel at large is how we are funded, and it's, and I would say the Niles Center exists today and is still here because of the way it has been funded. The initial investment came from the estate of John Jacob Niles, and that's where, you know, a lot of the, that's what helped to establish the center and build the facility there. But a few years later, University of Kentucky physics professor Keith McAdam passed away, and he was very deeply involved in the musical events at the center and participated in the monthly Shake Note sing-alongs that happened there, and all the concerts of Appalachian music. And so in his will, he established 2 endowments that the center still uses today. And without those, like I say, I don't think we would continue to exist. So these 2 endowments, one is controlled by, or one is sort of under the auspices of the School of Music, and that's the one we use to fund speakers and performances and to fund the concert series. And then the other endowment is administered through the library, the UK Library, and that's the acquisitions fund that I use to continue to acquire books and other ephemera for our collections. And so I feel like that, that kind of split funding source has kind of allowed me to, use things strategically, use funds strategically, and it also prevents any one part of the college from controlling our funds. And we'll talk about that a little in a moment. One of the issues that I face as the programmer, and I'm very jealous of Greg's center where he actually has staff, which is pretty amazing. We don't have any staff. We have, of course, wonderful grad students and library staff who help us with the facility. But I program a concert series for my Appalachian music class every fall, which is a great, wonderful program. During the pandemic, we continued to broadcast or stream, whatever you call it nowadays. We continued to stream live performances from the Niles Gallery just without an audience. And we're actually just currently, now that the pandemic is over, we're getting around to installing a live streaming facility in the center so we can do that with all of our concerts. But because of the Appalachian concert series, we tend to be largely focused on Appalachian music. And so I sometimes wonder why we were not called the Center for Appalachian Music as opposed to the Center for American Music. And so this is just one of the things that I have been trying to program more concerts by people representing other facets of American music. And I'm particularly intrigued by John Jacob Niles as a model of someone who was a little bit of an outsider, a little bit of an experimental composer, and so that has been my kind of approach, has been to hire, to bring in kind of outsider musicians, such as the great Northwestern singer-guitarist Baby Gramps. I don't know if you're all familiar with him, but he's quite a national treasure. And then also experimental electronic music. We have a growing electronic music composition program that I've been trying to collaborate. And last spring, I brought in my friend and electronic music composer Stephen Trask to do an electroacoustic concert. But the biggest thing that I think we face is the phenomenon of the lonely archive. And I'd like to hear the rest of us talk about this. Our biggest issue is attracting scholars to come and actually use the center's collection. And I've had a few people come in over the last few years, primarily wanting to look at our collection of dulcimers. There's a very big, kind of dulcimer fan club out there. And some of our Wilcox collection is currently being digitized for the Sounding Spirit project with Emory University, which is making our collections more accessible. But even among our students, I think Aaron Fulton here is maybe the only one of our currently active students who actually uses our collections for their own research. And I don't know, Aaron, do you think there's... Probably, yeah, I think maybe probably so. So, so here, this is to me, the biggest dilemma is how do we get people to come and use our collections? And I'm just going to throw out a couple of ideas, and maybe we can talk about them later. Let's see. Yeah, so maybe more digitization, making our archives more accessible, but that, that doesn't really bring people to campus. And I think part of the reason for having archives that bring people to them is to cross-fertilize with scholars from other institutions who can come in and interact with our students, interact with our faculty. We can hear what they're doing, we can tell them what we're doing. To me, that's important. So one of the ideas is to create some sort of research fellowship, some sort of grant program that allows us to actually provide a stipend for visiting researchers. I have not gotten a lot of enthusiasm from the college about that. And also just to improve the visibility of our collections through our website. And one of the things that's happened, I guess it was just before the pandemic, was that our website was changed so that it's no longer reflecting the Niles Center, but just it includes the Niles Gallery as a facility within the School of Music. And that, I think, completely erases the fact that we are a research center. And so this is one of my projects for this summer, is to try to redo the website to make our collection, to foreground our collections a little more. So that's all I have to say about this for now. I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
So add to your back burner that very soon will come to the front, how we get people into the archive. Dr. Megan MURPH is the director of the Buds Center for American Music Studies and an instructor in musicology at the University of Missouri-Columbia. Her research focuses on the life and work of Max Neuhaus and understanding the eco-political implications of noise. She has published scholarship on Neuhaus as well as presented various research topics at AMS, SAM, SEM, and IASPM. As the director of the Buds Center, so named for Michael Buds, Megan upholds the center's mission through educational outreach that fosters Missouri music, overseeing publications, recording projects, maintaining the center's collection and archive, overseeing PR and promotion of the center, and cultivating a presence within the community.
Let me hook up real quick. Yeah. Awesome. Can y'all hear me? Cool. And can y'all see? You can. Great. Well, thanks for being here. It is awesome to be here and to be among these great people. And it's probably fitting that I'm last. The center's the youngest. So I'm Megan MURPH. I'm the director of the Buds Center for American Music Studies at the University of Missouri in Columbia. And if you're like, what the heck is that? Well, we're only like 2.5 years old, so it's okay. So when I was asked to become the director 2.5 years ago, it was essentially creating this thing from the ground up. It's named after Michael Buds, who passed in 2020 and created an endowment at the university to make this center. And a part of our mission is to be devoted to research, education, and performance of American music with emphasis on music from Missouri, which is very rich and diverse and exciting. I am not from Missouri, but I have become the biggest historian and fan of Missouri music you could imagine. We are housed within the School of Music. However, I work constantly with our librarians in our university libraries, as well as we have a library science graduate program, and I have a graduate student or a graduate assistant who is a part of that program. If you are or aren't familiar with Michael Buds, he seemed like he was a character. I never knew him, but he taught for decades at the University of Missouri and wrote 6 books, all of which dealt with American music in some way. His first 3 dealt with jazz and with rock and roll, and then his last 3 dealt with Missouri. So he did one on the musical history of Mizzou, specifically the campus, and then one that was published right at his death, which was 200 Memorable Missouri Musical Moments, which came out during the Missouri Bicentennial. And then the last one, which we published posthumously, which it was a thematic catalog of the works of John Cheatham, who also was connected to Missouri. So our center is named after Michael Buds, and it's been an interesting process because I feel like I've been handed a blank canvas that says, make this center, but the canvas is made of Michael's hopes and dreams, as well as the, you know, the culture and the history of Mizzou and Missouri. So we also have a board of directors that I work very closely with, mainly with financial things, and our endowment. So a couple of things. My main goals for the last two and a half years have been, one, establishing the center physically. Two, establishing the center as a space that supports projects, things like that, but also promotes events and puts on events. That's been a biggie for me. And then three, there's this educational component where we're developing curriculum and we're also helping educators, especially K-12 educators throughout the state. So I'll talk about those three areas and some goals for the future, as well as funding opportunities. Okay, so big goal. We're opening fall 2024. Let's see if it happens. Facilities, you know, will they paint? Will they fix the carpet? Will they put in lights? We don't know, but we just trust the process, right? In the meantime, we are, you know, processing and cataloging as fast as we can. Our center is not as big as some of our friends up here. We only have a few thousand items, but we have myself and then 4 really great student, undergraduate and graduate assistants. Like I said, one is in library science who's helping catalog the collection as well as archiving Michael's personal papers. And hopefully continuing to acquire materials that specifically connect to Missouri music. I'm very proud that in the last 2.5 years, we have funded about $50,000 in projects. One big one was the J.W. Blind Boom Symposium that happened in 2022. If you're not familiar with Blind Boom, he was a Colombian from Missouri. He was a ragtime / popular music composer in the 19th into 20th century, a man of color, probably one of the wealthiest men in Boone County, and also he was blind. So it was an incredible symposium where we're thinking about this man and his connection to the county and the whole state as a whole. And it was a great opportunity to also collaborate with Lincoln University, which is an HBCU in Jefferson City, and then Central Missouri, which is in Warrensburg. Is Allison here by chance? I don't think she's here. Allison is from UCM, so I was gonna give a shout out. She also helped. Another thing is we helped support the Music, Sound, and Climate Justice pre-conference that happened before AMS. And we've released 3 recordings. So all of these are free for streaming, and that's been a big thing for me is I want all of our events, all of our things to be free and accessible. So the recent 3 have been 2 Virgil Thompson albums, Virgil Thompson, a Missourian. So you can see a theme here, right? And then an album of works by John Cheatham, another Missouri composer. If you Google these, you'll find them streaming on all platforms. And additionally, I mean, dozens of research grants, conference travel funds, guest lectures, performances. There's something happening at least once a month in the Bud Center. And so when I first started at the Bud Center, you know, I'm new to Missouri, I'm new to the university, and so what do? You look around and see what's there. And so we've had the opportunity to collaborate with so many amazing groups, and it's really been about knowing your resources and adapting to their interests as well. So, you know, I've been reaching out to the Missouri Arts Council, Missouri Folk Arts Program, Kinder Institute on Constitutional Democracy, State Historical Society of Missouri, University of Missouri Libraries, Daniel Boone Regional Library, Boone County History and Culture Center, the Boone Heritage Foundation, the We Always Sing Jazz Series, just reaching out to whoever's around and saying, hey, how can we help? How can we collaborate? And we've done some amazing, amazing things. Let's see. One thing that I really have been trying to do is make sure that all of our programming connects to IDE or DEI in some way. I've already mentioned the Boone Symposium. Last year we did a Sounds of the Underground Railroad performance with the Missouri Arts Council. This May, we are one of the co-sponsors of the For the People powwow in Jeff City. And next month, we're one of the sponsors of the Afro-Cuban Legacy Series for We Always Swing. So connecting in some way and supporting these events has been a big part of what I want the Bud Center to be. I keep talking about I do have a group of people, so I have the board, I have my students, but I've been doing focus groups within the School of Music and across the university just to see, like, what do you want in a Center for American Music? Like, what does that mean to you? And if you offer free food, students will show up and they'll tell you what they want. And so trying to listen to their stories, a lot of them just want to know what is American music, because that's a big question for them. Like, well, what do you mean? And so it's fun to have those conversations. I mentioned developing curriculum. So one thing is I created a Missouri Music course, and there's both the graduate course for music grad students, and then there's a intro to Missouri music for undergraduates. It's an elective. It counts towards the Missouri Studies minor as well as an honors elective. So working with those institutions right across campus to like get this stuff going has been key. And then having one of our graduate assistants help develop K-12 lesson plans and have them available for free so that any teacher across Missouri, or really anywhere, could pull up a lesson plan about Scott Joplin, or about Boone, or about Sweet Betsy from Pike, right? Like anything at all. And that's continually growing and being added to. So a couple of our events I've already mentioned. This one was a great one last fall. We brought in Muskogee Creek musician Kaylin Faye in conjunction with the County One Read program, which is where the whole county reads a book together. And the book that semester was When Two Feathers Fell from the Sky, which is it deals with a lot of Native American themes. And so this artist came and performed music. She also wrote music in Cherokee, so it was a great event. I've already mentioned the Underground Railroad. Another thing that I did this past January is our Missouri Music Wikipedia Edit-a-thon. So a part of the Missouri Music class, we're realizing there are so many Missouri musicians who don't have Wikipedia pages, especially women and folks of color. So a big part of our class, assignments was fixing these, creating these, etc. And then the old time jams, they happen every month. We have a great crowd that comes first Monday of every month just to jam. And we have Howard Marshall, who's an incredible asset to our program, who's invested in Ozark fiddling and also Northern Missouri fiddling. So he's been doing talks and educating the folks on the differences in styles. So I've talked enough. Goals for the future is continue collaborating with local community groups and supporting researchers, performers connected to American music, music of the United States, and more specifically Missouri music. That's our niche. Hopefully opening the center so that folks can have a space to research, and then continuing to be creative and imagining what this space could be in Missouri. I mentioned there is funding. So we have an application that's open to anyone. You do not have to be Mizzou affiliated. And the application is due January 31st for 2025. So if you're interested, you can check it out. There's a QR code, and I'm happy to answer any questions. This is also a screenshot of the website I made, and I am not a website designer. So it functions, it is not beautiful, and you'll find the application circled on the right side of the page. And then, of course, please follow us on social media. And I would love to continue talking with my friends here about what does it mean to be a center for American music. Thank y'all.
I don't know everybody in the room, but I do see Dean Root, who you were at one point affiliated with the Center for American Music at University of Pittsburgh, right? And Laurie Samsel, not anymore, but you were affiliated with the American Music Research Center at the University of Colorado Boulder. I see Jesse Carlsberg in the back, Digital Scholarship Strategist for Emory Center for Digital Scholarship at Emory University. Anybody else affiliated with a center of some kind? Would you tell us who you are and where you are?
Sure. I should use the microphone yet? Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Smith, and I'm the founding director of the Vernacular Music Center at Texas Tech University. And thanks for this invitation, because I actually did want to ask a question. Various things that each of our presenters have said have really resonated with me in both positive and not so positive ways. But one thing that occurred to me is that contrasts what my center does versus what you guys do is that you seem, it seems you have an especially challenging sort of bifurcated obligation, because you run archives, but you're also desirous of and in charge to present programming. And it's making me think, well, we have an enormous Southwest collection archive in our libraries at Texas Tech, and we've never done anything with them, and I feel like an idiot for not thinking of that. But on the other hand, my question was going to be, would any of you, or maybe a topic, roll the soccer ball out in the middle of the pitch, how does the obligation of the archive play well or poorly with the obligation of programming? And you've touched on that, like, well, I'll try to do things that are thematic from within the collection, but I'd love to hear you, any or all of you, just sort of talk more about the archive, the demands, the needs of a responsible archivist versus that of programming.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. That is a really good question, and I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I do have a speaker series that I believe you were part of it, and we do bring in people to talk about topics in American music history, but I've had a hard time necessarily tying that directly to our collections. There's not a lot of people out there doing, sacred songbooks or barn dances, and and then tying it into our music performances as well is also really tricky. So I don't know that I have an answer for that, but I do think it's something that would help to raise the visibility. The programming is by far the most visible thing that we do. It's face forward outreach, and bringing the community in as well. To me, that's what's really important, is not us providing programming for our unwashed masses, but to bring the community into the center and have them perform for the campus. To me, that's a big part of it. But but then relating that to our I think that is one of the ways to make our archives more visible, but I'm not sure I've been doing such a good job of that. I don't know if you guys have thoughts.
Yeah, this is an excellent question and a complicated topic. In principle, philosophically, both the archival work and the public programming outreach kind of work all contribute to the part of our mission that is to promote the study and understanding and appreciation of America's diverse musical cultures. In practice, it becomes a tension of resources, time being the most valuable one of all, from where I sit. And I have to be honest to say that sometimes the archival staff doesn't necessarily like to be pulled away from what they consider their primary tasks for programming and support of various kinds. I mean, I think we have worked out a good balance, but it took a little while to get there. And the public programming that we do, I think falls into two big categories, one of which is more directed at the campus community and ties into support of teaching and specific programs that we do. So some of it is thinking about, okay, what are our music business students going to want, or the audio engineering students might appreciate hearing from an experienced Nashville engineer, so we will bring somebody like that in for a talk and coordinate with professors and so on. The other big category, of course, is more public facing and more geared towards community engagement. So these things operate on multiple levels. We have small programs, we have very big programs, and everything in between. And I tried to speak a little bit to tying those things together in the sense that public programming and outreach and the visibility that it generates can, over time, lead to not only more use of the archive, but collection development as well. It's a hard thing to, can't draw a straight line most of the time between those things, but I do believe they're interconnected. It takes a very, very long time. So like everything else that we do, it's a balancing act.
So as you see, Augustina is here on, I was gonna say YouTube, but maybe that's later, on Zoom, joining us, and I just want to give another shout out to Michelle Yom back there. She's way in the back row, but she's been the graduate assistant for, and really the managing editor for our periodical American Music Review for 2 years now, or is it 3? Maybe it's like 2 or 3. But one of the things that Augustina just did is come up with a program that utilizes, we have a monograph collection that goes back many, many years. I think it's almost 50. And one of the last, if not the last monograph in the collection is a 2005 publication called Critical Minded. And, oh no, she disappeared. Oh, there she is. Okay, she's back. And I don't know if we can, if I maybe put the mic up to, do you want to try talking, Augustina, and see if we can hear you? But maybe you want to talk about the Critical Minded program you have in mind about hip hop? Oh no. Okay, we can't hear you. I'm going to try putting the mic up to the speaker and see if we can hear you. We got nothing. Okay, oh no, and now I can't see you. Okay, so maybe if you send it to me in a text, I can read it, but I'm gonna describe it briefly. Or maybe if you put it in the chat in Zoom, then people can see it. But yeah, it's part of a larger effort on hip hop that we're producing, but the relationship to archive is, of course, that this comes straight from a long tradition of producing archives that were basically produced from fellowships that people had to be at the Institute for a period of time. And that was back when, there was funding from the college, from the university, for institutes and centers at CUNY. And when the director and the associate director had time that was funded from the provost. And we might come back to this one and then read what Augustina has to say. Okay.
I just wanted to introduce Eric Hung, who is also waved his hand. Do you want to come up or do you? Yeah, great. From the Music of Asian America Research Center.
Hi, so I'm Eric Hung, Music of Asian America Research Center, as Kay said. And I don't know why this is coming in and
Oh,
out.
they have that mic.
Hi, so I've been running the Music Latin America Research Center for the past 7 years, and we're a digital-only repository, and our primary audience are Asian American adults, and we do partnerships to do programs with younger children as well, but we collect archives for a very different purpose. It doesn't exist. So we want to do any programming, we need to do our own archiving. So we see archiving as really a means to an end. And because our primary audience are not researchers, we don't care as much about, people using the archives. So we have a different goal and approach because of that. I am also part of the Center for Archival Futures at the iSchool at the University of Maryland, and we have a very, very different approach to that because they only care about researchers. And that's one reason why we have decided to not be a part of a university.
August, you guys sent something in the Zoom chat. That was what I was trying to do.
so much.
So I'll just read what she says briefly because it's really small. She says, going over the archive, we found the monograph, Critical Minded, New Approaches to the Study of Hip Hop. It was published in 2005. And this year we're using it as an excuse, I love her, to do an amazing multi-CUNY event around hip hop. This was a helpful way in which both of these things were articulated in the past, the present and the future of HiSam through an archival object that we recuperated and are bringing now new attention and value to many objects for Wiley's collection, which we recently made available to the NYPL as well. Yeah, we had Kevin Parks, who's a Brooklyn College graduate, come back to the our little 2 rooms in in Whitehead Hall at Brooklyn College. And he made sure that the films and the cassette tapes and things that we had at the center were not decaying because from 1971, those things really age. And there are interviews with Wiley with, some folks like, folks that were important in mid-century composition and things like this that we didn't want to lose. So Kevin Parks was assessing our archives for, deposit in the NYPL. And so our archives are moving offshore to New Jersey. So you've got to go visit them there, which is like a whole thing, right, Eric?
Come to New Jersey.
I would just like to follow up on something Eric was saying about creating digital archives yourself, which I think is a really great way to go. And I have an idea for a project that I've been having a hard time getting off the ground. So I'd love to talk to anyone about how to start something like this, but I really want to create an archive of topical ballads, and maybe in conjunction with our Center for Oral History at the UK, the Nunn Center, does a great job recording oral histories. My thought was to bring people in and have a little recording station where people who've written songs about the tornadoes in Western Kentucky or the floods in Eastern Kentucky or climate change or something, anything, can come in and record a ballad and have it incorporated into an archive. And I'm not sure what the legal ramifications of that would be, but or the technical ramifications. But to me, that's sort of the future of where we're going to go with things like this. Is having these kind of generative archives. Yeah.
If you'll forgive both a suggestion, which is also simultaneously a plug.
Yeah.
Come to the academic podcasting panel.
Okay.
This weekend. And throw that one out there.
Yeah.
I've thought about these kinds of projects as well, and I would just suggest to you and to the room that you might also consider a setup in which people do not have to come in.
Right.
So if you think of the StoryCorps model of NPR, yeah, I mean, it's everybody's got cell phones pretty much. You just turn them on and have specific instructions about how to submit a recording. And the legal aspects of it, it can be covered if you create certain forms that have to be agreed to, and it wouldn't be anything complicated. But
You've never dealt with the University of Kentucky legal office.
well, no, but I've dealt with the Middle Tennessee State legal office quite a bit. And legal issues, by the way, are copyright most obviously, but there are many others. That becomes a kind of a daily entanglement when you're running an archive and a research center. I mean, in every respect. I mean, for us, it's amplified even more so because we have a commercially operating record label that has agreements and royalty payments and all these kinds of things. So for me, the last 10 years has been a crash course in a lot of the legal aspects of both academic archival work, fair use, and all those kinds of things. Digitization is a whole can of worms legally, and then also the record business and all of the legal complications around that. But so it's something that we deal with daily, literally. Other questions? Maybe from Kay.
I got a million of them. I'm wondering, I'm very interested in several topics, and so I'll throw them out and see if any of them are of interest. One is that I see an excitement of getting a center up and running, like Wiley did in the early 1970s, and that was also right around our bicentennial year, and MUSA was going to, so there's a lot of exciting things happening in American music research versus the responsibility of maintaining an institution. And Stephanie talked about this, maintaining an institution in the face of diminishing support. I don't know, is there traction in this group with that question? Is there anything to be said that hadn't already been said? I will tell you, in my position at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, I went there in 1990, and they had a small American archive that had some stuff by Paul Creston and other people, and I called, they wanted to make a center, so I called the director at Middle Tennessee State, and he said, and I'm sure you know who this person is, he was very kind to me, and he said, you just have to start writing grants. When the NEH if I'm late with our grant, NEH calls me and says, where's your grant this year? Where's your proposal? So, I mean, that doesn't sound like my experience with grant writing, but...
It doesn't work like that anymore.
And so I wonder if there's anything to be said by that sort of big excitement at the beginning, and then this, if it's anything like ASU, just trying to fight for dollars everywhere you can.
Yeah, I'll be happy to talk about that a little bit. I mean, I was in the fortunate position of coming into an institution that was very well established, with a very impressive track record of collection building and other kinds of activities, including grants. And although we've continued to get grants for various specific projects in the time that I've been at the CPM, there's some challenges that, if you're not doing the kind of job I am, you might not realize. Because getting grants sounds great, but it doesn't always work the way you want it to work. What we need most is and I know we're in an enviable position because I have staff, but we need more staff. We've got an enormous backlog of materials that needs to be processed. And I'm not talking about digitizing, I'm just talking about cataloging, archival process, making things accessible in the old-fashioned way that an archive does. But it's almost impossible to just go out and I'm gonna get some money so I can hire, an archivist for a year to just catalog LPs or something. Those kinds of grant programs really don't exist unless you have ways of finessing them into meeting very specific goals. Sometimes we've gotten grants where, you know, there are very set limitations, like this is an NEH thing, among others, on how much of that grant money can be used for salary replacement for full-time staff. So yeah, I would love to just use that for salary replacement and save the money that we could, you know, redirect it to other things, but there are percentage limits on how much you can do. So yeah, we do a little bit of that, and then we have to find other ways to utilize that money in ways that are truly beneficial. So it's tricky. It's tricky, and you need institutional support in terms of, you know, a good functioning grants office, and the people who administer those grants. There are a lot of matching grants out there that look great, and you can write a great proposal, but if you don't have the commitment from your own university, provost office, or whoever it may be, you know, but you have an obligation to come up with matching funds, then, you know, that's a non-starter. We've been very lucky at MTSU, because I think the provost, not just our current, but a whole history of provosts and presidents have thought of the Center for Popular Music as one of the real jewels of the university, and so we've been able to get that kind of matching funding for big grant projects and things. One of them was, we got a big grant from the NEH for capital improvements. It had nothing to do with archival projects of cataloging, processing, digitizing, and so on. It was, we need new shelves and new lighting and all that kind of stuff, and we were able to get that from the NEH, but only because our provost office looked at it and wisely said, yeah, if I invest this amount of money, we're gonna get 4 times our return on this, basically, for the university. So again, we're in a somewhat enviable position. Our budget is actually good, relatively speaking, and we have a staff. I'd love to have even more resources, but we're in a pretty good position at the Center for Popular Music.
Yeah, I want to address this because I think, you know, it's been really interesting this year, having sort of been through no real desire of my own, you know, elevated to the dubious position of interim dean, and learning a little bit about, as John Graziano put it to me yesterday, how the sausage is made. You know, I didn't want to know how the sausage was made, but I think the position that Wiley took at the beginning of his founding of the Hitchcock Institute was, if the provost is willing to give us all of this reassigned time, then the institution must have a lot of faith in this intellectual project. And even with that reassigned time, the archival evidence reveals that he spent a great amount of time in correspondence with others, and in a way, he took that time to write grants, to build networks. So he was never idle in that time, and he did spend it writing a ton of NEA and NEH grants and seeking out resources that would begin to understand what the process of building an American music scholarship network and society and community was. And I think the issue at hand that we are sort of dealing with now is a dwindling kind of institutional support of liberal arts in general, and in our large urban institution, a homogenization of those 26 colleges. And as much as I hate to say those words and admit those words, that's what's happening at my particular institution. And I think there's a trend towards that at some of the larger urban institutions in higher ed. And unfortunately, I see it firsthand and then have to then give that information to chairs and faculty. And it's a terrible thing to witness. And along with that are things like, well, we're going to give this funding and this time for research to the STEM fields, and
then it's a process of justification a lot of times where you've got to say, well, American music fits in here, and that's not the way we want to run a research institute like the Hitchcock Institute, which has such a rich history. So we have these long conversations with our board of advisors, which is an intellectually rich group of people, and we say to ourselves, okay, how many hours should we take then to write grants? How much time, how much like real woman hours, which is because we're the Women of High Sam. We have like a text group called Women of High Sam. How many woman hours should we give this to be able to do this work? And what is the importance of this work to us versus to the university? And we have to kind of weigh those things with a heavy teaching load and kind of the realities of our situation. And we do want to preserve it because it is important to the field. But we have to also kind of look at the realities of, you know, these are the resources that we have. And we did do a big fundraising push between 2022 and 2024. And it got us enough to sustain us to the point where we are. And I think we'll be able to move things to the doctoral granting institution. But those are the big questions. Given the realities of the situation, how do you sustain, and how do you do something that's fulfilling for the students, that sort of pushes against, you know, rage against the machine, while at the same time maintaining. And Augustina, if you want to type anything in the chat, which I feel like you're doing, yeah. If you have a comment, and Eric, I see you're gonna.
Yeah, I might have a slightly different view because it's actually very easy for me to have a different view because we're post-custodial. So if we talk about digital only, that doesn't mean that we only take digitized objects. We take analog objects, we digitize and then return it to the original owner. But we really see like our goal as establishing the field of Asian American studies as a real thing, Asian American music as a real field of study. And I'm okay sunsetting the archive after we establish that, because hopefully the information that we provide will be in every textbook that's out there, right? So, you know, I think one thing that archives really have to think hard about is how long you want it to sustain. And permanent, I don't think is a realistic solution.
I wanted to add a suggestion for one strategy that I haven't heard mentioned exactly yet, which is that when we came to a point in transition within our university and new missions being drafted around us, I was allowed to convene an informal advisory group that included at least 2 members of the university's board of trustees, a person who was also the insurance broker for the university and a few other things like that, who understood how the university works and were able to tell me and together, collectively, work out a strategy that the provost loved and that allowed us to actually transition from a sort of really pretty backwater sort of single collection into a full-fledged center for American music. It was backwater in the sense that nobody was using it, nobody knew about it. Lori and others helped us catalog it and make it accessible to the world as part of the center. So I just wanted to suggest there's another strategy in coming up with how to articulate to the powers that be as you're moving forward.
Insider knowledge. Thank you. I see our time is almost finished. Do we have any other things, Stephanie, you want to? We're supposed to be done at 3:30. Anybody else want to add anything from the panel? It's just been really fascinating, and these are the kinds of things that we absolutely expect to be there when we come to New York or North Texas or the John Jacob Niles Center. We expect them to be there, and we expect an opportunity to work in them. So this is, I think, really fantastic, and I want to thank the presenters one more time. They really honored me by inviting me to come along. Anything else from anybody? No? Okay, thank you so much for coming.